We're going to look at today how to add and subtract integers, and I want to start by a couple examples of modeling them so you can really understand what you're doing when you're adding and subtracting integers, and then we'll get into the rules. So for this first one, our example is -3 plus 4, and it already tells you that the answer is a positive 1, but let's take a look at why that is. So if we take a look at this model, the green dash marks are the negative signs, and the reason there's 3 of them is because in our problem it says -3. So I've got 3 negative green negative marks, and then I have 4 positive because the 4 is positive in my problem. A negative and a positive cancels each other out. So in this next part, you can see that we have grouped a negative and a positive together. And there's altogether 3 of them. So this cancels, and this cancels, leaving you 1 positive. That is how our answer is a positive 1. The next model I want to look at is by a number line. And here our problem is 1 plus 6. Now I know that there's no negatives here, but I want to show you what that would look like, and we'll do an example if there was a negative. You start at 1, and the reason we're starting at 1 is because that's where our problem starts. It starts at 1. And then I'm going to move to the right 6 places, and I'm moving to the right 6 because my next number is a positive 6. If that was a negative 6, I would move to the left 6. So I start here at 1, I jump 6 spaces, and that is where I end up at 7. Let's just take a look at what this would look like if I was going to do 1 plus a negative 6. And you notice when I write this, I put the negative in parentheses. The parentheses don't do anything except let you know that that is a negative 6. Without those, it would look like this. 1 plus negative 6. And it just looks a little odd. It almost looks like you're saying 1 plus minus 6. So what we do is we put this in parentheses just so you understand that this is 1 plus a negative 6, that negative it goes with that 6. So again, I'm going to start at the 1 right here. And this time I'm moving to the left 6, and I'm going to the left because it's negative, like we went to the right because it was positive the first time. So I'm going to jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I end at a -5, therefore this equals a -5. So those are 2 ways that you can model adding and subtracting integers. The problem with that, not that it doesn't work, but that it's not always convenient. There's not always time to draw little pluses or little minuses or do a number line, and sometimes you're adding and subtracting very large numbers. For example, if you were going to do -75 plus a positive 62, you don't want to have to do 75 and 62 pluses and minuses, or you don't want to have to make a number line that large. So let's see what the rules are. We're going to start with adding integers first, and you'll see why at the end. But here it says that for adding integers, you basically have 2 sets of rules that you need to be able to apply. The first is if the signs are the same, meaning you're adding 2 positive numbers or you're adding 2 negative numbers. If the signs are the same, add and keep the same sign. It's that simple. You just add the numbers, and if it's a positive, it's a positive. If they're negative, you leave it negative. In this first example, -5 plus -6. Both are negative. We add our numbers, which is 11. Since they're both negative, it stays a -11. Here we have a positive 8. We would add, which is 16, and a positive plus a positive equals a positive. If the signs are different, you actually subtract the absolute values and you keep the sign of the larger absolute value. And the reason it doesn't just say the larger numbers, because remember from our last lesson, the positive will always technically have a higher value than the negative. So you're only looking at the absolute value of those numbers. Let's try this first one. I've got a negative plus a positive. Here's my signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. I'm going to ignore the signs completely and just do 9 minus 5. Well, 9 minus 5 is 4. And then I want to take the sign of the larger absolute value. Well, 9 is bigger than 5, and 9 is negative, therefore my answer is also negative. Let's try this one. Again, we're going to subtract because our signs are different. 3 minus 2 is 1, and we want to take the sign of the larger absolute value. Well, 3 is bigger than 2, and 3 is positive, therefore my answer is positive. And that's how you add integers. Let's now look at integers. The rules for subtracting integers and the reason why we did adding first is because once you change your problem, you are actually doing an addition problem. So it says here to subtract, add the opposite. Here are our rules. Step 1, do not change anything about the first number. If it's positive, leave it positive. If it's negative, leave it negative. You're not going to do anything to it. Rule number 2, you're going to change the subtraction sign to a plus sign. We're changing it to an addition problem. Step 3, that's in green. Change the sign of the second number. If the second number is positive, you make it negative. If the second number is negative, you make it positive. In the fourth step, you now use your rules for adding. So we change the minus to a plus and switch the sign of the second number. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Some problems now. So in this first one, I've got 4 minus 7. I'm going to change the minus to a plus, and I'm going to switch the sign of the second number. Right now, it is a positive, so I'm going to make it a negative. So I have changed this problem to 4 plus a negative 7. Now using my rules, my signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. 7 minus 4 is 3, and it takes the sign of the larger number. 7 is bigger than 4, 7 is negative, so my answer is negative. Second one, leave that first number alone. Change that minus sign to a plus sign and switch the sign of the second number. So you've now made this problem -1 plus -9. Signs are the same, so we just add our numbers. They're both negative, your answer's negative. And the last one, change that minus to a plus and switch the sign of the second number. So we have made this problem -3 plus 5. My signs are different, subtract them. 5 minus 3 is 2. Take the sign of the larger number. 5 is bigger than 3. 5 is positive. Your answer is positive. Hope this helps. Good luck.